What's up guys, RGT85 here, and today on the channel we have some exciting stuff to talk about because it involves Sega. Now you guys know that I am a big Sega fan, especially old school Sega stuff, and it also involves the Nintendo Switch, which is a system that I absolutely love. And it involves the SEGA AGES collection, so there's some cool stuff going on. It looks like we may be getting some Dreamcast stuff on the Nintendo Switch very soon, which is very, very exciting to me because the Dreamcast is an awesome system. There's also a sub-story going on with this that involves Virtua Racing coming to the SEGA AGES collection via the Nintendo Switch. That's also very exciting as well. So enough chit chat, sit back, relax, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and let's get into this story about how Dreamcast is potentially coming to the Switch very soon.
Hey, RGT85. Hey, Sean.
Oh my God, it's Stevie Richards! So the SEGA AGES collection was of course announced for the Nintendo Switch over the summer during a Sega fan event in Japan, and a lot of people, myself included, got very excited over this. I love old school Sega stuff, and you're really starting to see Sega ramp up production when it comes to the Nintendo Switch. Of course, the Sega Genesis collection was announced for the PS4 and the Xbox One. It released over the summer for those systems, but we never got a Switch release, and now the Switch release is coming during this winter. So it's very exciting, and of course the games that they showcased during the Sega AGES collection, the initial batch, were Sega Genesis games. Since then, we've had 2 games released. I took a look at Sonic the Hedgehog on the Sega AGES collection, and I was pleasantly surprised. Yes, it's Sonic the Hedgehog, a game that we have always played, and a game that all of us have probably played over 100 billion different times and own it on 100 billion different systems, but this version of the game was very solid because M2 was the one porting this. And the game looked great, it played great, and of course there were some added features into it as well. Well, a couple weeks ago on the channel, we talked about a new Sega AGES game that was announced for the Nintendo Switch, and that is Virtua Racing. Well, if you're not familiar with Virtua Racing, basically it was the precursor to Daytona USA. It was pretty much one of the first 3D arcade racing games, and just a really fantastic game. It still plays well, it still looks great today, and it's been released on a variety of systems. There, of course, was the Sega Genesis version, the 32X version, the Saturn version, the original arcade version, and Sega AGES was actually a thing that was pretty big on the PS2 in Japan. So there was a Sega AGES version of Virtua Racing released on the PS2 in Japan that was improved upon the arcade version. Well, a lot of people have been wondering what version of Virtua Racing will be coming to the Nintendo Switch, because so far, like I said, all we have seen in the Sega AGES collection are Genesis ports that have been announced and that are coming to the Nintendo Switch. Well, in a recent interview, we got some interesting information from Sega that could potentially be showcasing that this is the arcade version of the game. So I basically want to go over what was said in this interview and then sort of speculate on what was said. So basically what's going on with Virtua Racing is originally it was intended to come to the 3DS, but that version ended up being scratched and they had to start from scratch on that. Now, they are saying that in terms of additional content, it's a good thing we have the game's source code. So that right there is very interesting to me, because why would you need the source code unless you plan on adding in additional content? And of course, if it was the Sega Genesis version of the game, you would already have that source code. That is an older version of the game. It wouldn't be a big deal. So is the Virtua Racing that comes to the Nintendo Switch via the Sega AGES collection going to be the arcade version? I definitely think it is now. You know, with statements like that saying that it's good that we have the original source code, you're obviously wanting to add in things. Could there be things like leaderboards and maybe even online racing in Virtua Racing for the Nintendo Switch via the Sega AGES collection? I definitely think it's a possibility, and that honestly would be very exciting, even if it's just online leaderboards for track times and things like that. That's pretty much what that game was based on, was how fast you could get around the courses. So I would love that, but the inclusion of things like online racing I think would be really spectacular as well. All I know is I'm very excited for Virtua Racing coming to the Nintendo Switch via the Sega AGES collection. I honestly hope it is the arcade version, which is the version that I've been showcasing over the overlays here on the video, because I think it's a fantastic game. It still holds up well, and it's still a really good game. So hopefully that's what we end up seeing come to the Nintendo Switch. But of course the big story here is Dreamcast coming to the Nintendo Switch. Now when the SEGA Ages collection was first announced, SEGA themselves said something along the lines of, if the SEGA Ages games that are initially released sell well, there is the potential to see Sega Saturn and Sega Dreamcast come to the Nintendo Switch. So obviously that is something that is in the back of their minds. We did a video on that when that was first announced and unveiled by SEGA during the SEGA Ages collection or the SEGA Ages event that they had during their fan festival. Well, during Tokyo Game Show, prior to Tokyo Game Show, SEGA actually did a poll in Japan to see what the most wanted games for SEGA Ages collection were, and those poll results were revealed, and it's very interesting to see the games that are on this list. So I want to go over this list very briefly and then talk about what SEGA had to say about this list. So the first game was the Jet Set Radio series. Number 2 was Shenmue 1 and 2. Number 3 was Panzer Dragoon Saga. 4, Virtua Fighter. 5, the Shining series. 6, the Panzer series. 7, Sakura Wars. 8 was Puyo Puyo series. 9 was Cyber Troops Virtual On. 10 was Burning Rangers. 11, Skies of Arcadia. 12, Nights into Dreams. 13, Golden Axe series. 14, Mushi King, the King of Beetle series. I don't even know what that is. 15, Phantasy Star Online. 16, Space Channel 5 series. 17, Outrunners. 18, Sonic Adventure 1 and 2. 19, Daytona USA series. 20, Spike Out series. And then there's more games like Virtua Racing, Die Hard Arcade, Fantasy Zone, Dragon Force. But a lot of these games are Dreamcast games and Saturn games. So there's not many Genesis games on this list. So it definitely shows what the fans want. Now, in terms of what the fans want is obviously what fan demand is. So Sega themselves have actually said something about this poll and what they think of this poll. The Sega Ages producer, Mr. Shimamura, came out and said that Jet Set Radio coming first in the most wanted games poll for the Sega Ages collection doesn't necessarily mean it'll get a port, but he still wants to meet fans' expectations. So right then and there, you're pretty much saying that, hey, you know, might not be concrete, but more than likely we are going to be doing this because the fan demand for this Sega Ages collection obviously is stuff like Dreamcast and Saturn. It's in the poll right there, and honestly it makes sense to me. While I love the Sega Ages collection and I love the Genesis stuff because the Nintendo Switch lacks a virtual console, with things like the Sega Genesis collection coming out onto the Nintendo Switch this winter, it's really going to make it obsolete, I feel. You know, you can't just re-churn out these Genesis games that are already available on a collection that's only going to cost $30 as individual prices for, you know, $7.99 just to play Sonic the Hedgehog. Yes, there are additional features added. Yes, there is level select and leaderboards for different races and stuff like that, which is super cool. I totally get that. But when you're dealing with M2, as M2 is the company porting all this, they know how to port these games. And of course, we have seen Dreamcast games on other platforms. The Xbox 360 had Dreamcast games on their service that you could download. Games like Sonic Adventure. I believe there was even a retail game that came out that had like 3 games on it, like Crazy Taxi and things like that. The demand for Dreamcast and Saturn stuff is very high because a lot of people did not have a Dreamcast. A lot of people chose the PS2 over that. A lot of people did not have the Sega Saturn. A lot of people chose a PS1 over that. It's just the way it was. And the fact that it's very hard to emulate Sega Saturn stuff and it's virtually, you know, pretty impossible to get portable versions, I should say, of Sega Saturn and Dreamcast games on the go because of emulation issues, it would be a huge thing to have games, Dreamcast games, and Sega Saturn games on the go. To be able to play these games wherever you go would be absolutely awesome. Sega is hearing the fan reception. Sega is hearing that people want Dreamcast games and want Saturn games to come to the Nintendo Switch via the Sega Ages collection. M2 is the company that can make this happen because they are very good at what they do and they are very good at their ports. So we need to make this happen because honestly, it would be absolutely amazing. Obviously, there is no traditional virtual console. You're not going to get stuff like Genesis stuff and Saturn stuff and Dreamcast stuff coming to us from Nintendo. So why wouldn't Sega want to step in and capitalize on this market? The demand is there. They know the demand is there. They've been teasing it. I'm just waiting for them to completely confirm it. But I think all of this just really shows that they are going to be doing some special stuff with the Sega Ages collection. I feel like you're going to get some Sega arcade ports. You're going to get Dreamcast ports and you're going to get Saturn ports eventually because the demand is there and Sega knows it and now they are talking about it. So let me know in the comment section down below what Dreamcast games you want to see come to the Nintendo Switch. Are you excited that Virtua Virtua Racing for the Sega Ages collection via the Nintendo Switch is more than likely the arcade version of the game, which is a fantastic version of the game. And of course, thank you for checking out this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Be sure to enter the $100 eShop gift card giveaway that I'm doing right now. It's probably still going on by the time we're watching this video. There will be a pinned comment in the comment section down below. Very easy to enter, and then hey, you can buy all these Sega Ages games that come to the Nintendo Switch eShop if you win, because you got $100, and $100 is cool. Thank you for checking out this video, and as always, I will catch you guys on the next one. Later.